vibing, huh? Ain't nothing wrong.
Yeah.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, listen, welcome to another edition of That Part Podcast. You can find us on YouTube at That Part Podcast 305. You can find us on Instagram as well. Brought to you by High-Low News. That's South Florida's hyper-local news, along with Just Vote, period. All right. So now, listen, we want to welcome y'all to this podcast. This is, how many of these we done did now?
This is lucky number 5. Is number 5 a lucky number? But
lucky number 5. Lucky. Well, so far, we've been lucky with all of the ones we done did, right?
Yes, man. I think it's been amazing. And tonight is no different. I'm really, really excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, that's what's up, man. I'm excited too. We've had on some amazing guests prior to this, and this one doesn't fall short as well, man. I think we, for our startup and for our first time in the game and how we put this all together, we've been very fortunate to really have a nice ensemble of guests, man. But That Part Podcast is here to just deliver some political information to you, some things that's happening in the community, in a way for you to digest it, understand it, and in a way of you wanting to get involved with it. That's really the most important thing. Like, we want to be able to deliver this in a way where you like, oh yes, I got to get with the program. You know what I mean? I like what they saying. You know what I'm saying? And just take the steps, whether the steps is as simple as subscribing to High-Low News and getting your news, and figuring out what's going on in the community, what's happening, or whether it's registering with Just Vote, period, to stay informed, understanding that on the 22nd is your last day to change your party if you want to do so, and stuff like that for the election coming up, and the primaries coming up in August. You know what I mean? So I'm going to start off by introducing my amazing co-host. I'm so lucky to have her. She's more than a co-host. She's like low-key. Say that again?
I said, we're lucky to have each other.
That's what's up. But let me gloat on you first, man. Like, this woman has pretty much guided me, shaped me, dragged me to meetings and different things to get my ass even more woke than I am right now, man. And I credit her to that. I won't stop giving her the credit for that. But she's also the CEO of High-Low News, South Florida's hyper-local news. If you ain't with High-Low, you just don't know. You know what I mean? It's the way how I get my news, period. It's the way how I get my news, and how you should too, man. She's been doing her thing on the scene for quite some years now, and is respected by politicians, the community. She covers the things that other places won't cover, and her focus is on millennials, Black and brown. And if I may, this ain't your grandmama's news, she likes to say.
Yeah, I gotta put that on High-Low. We gotta make that a whole drop right there.
I'm telling you, man. And just an amazing soul. She cares about the community while she does this, work tirelessly. Janae Tate.
Hey, PK, thank you for that warm welcome, and thank you for giving me that assurance and self-esteem boost right before we hopped on. You've been watching, you see I got this hat on. I'm in my Cowboy Carter energy right now. I mean, I was like this. There was 2 things behind this. One, I was having camera and technical issues, so I'm like, what is the quickest way that I can look camera ready? Let's put something on his head. It also
it works. You're getting your Anthony Hamilton on. I love it.
I really love me. Okay, yeah. I forgot. I used to love Anthony Hamilton. I go in. I love him too, but I look like a man.
No, meaning the hat. Just specifically the hat. That's it. You do not look like a man. Trust me.
I was just being silly. And then also too, like, America has been the wild, wild west for the last few fucking days. So I'm like, it's very befitting. Let me get on my cowboy kind of, neo soul type of energy and bring that tonight. And I think we're going to have a really good conversation with our guests. Like, everybody's been bringing it every week. Our audience, shout out to the audience that watches live. Like, they're the third co-host. I keep saying that. They are the third co-host.
Yeah, we appreciate you all right now. Trust me.
In the comments, they're lit. But yeah, thank you for that welcome. And I'm just so happy to be here doing episode number 5. Like, we doing it, Joe. Like, we doing it.
Real. And we have 3 more left in the first series, man.
Yeah.
Yep. It's only been getting better and better as we go along, man. My name is Papa Keith. I'm a radio personality on 103.5 The Beat. I have Just Vote, period, which advocates our youth to vote, our Gen Xers and millennials. And we do it as a lifestyle advocacy. So yes, you know, we have our scotch, we drink, we party, we have a good time, but we are the cool kids that vote. And we want you to be those cool kids that vote as well. You know what I mean? So we try to encourage you that way. Like, listen, man, we want to see change in our community. We want to see things happen. We got to be involved with the process. You know what I'm saying? So it's nothing more cool than that to me. So please go and follow us on Instagram at Just Vote, period. We give you light information, just reminders of things that you need to engage with. And yeah, we appreciate any support that you can give us on that level. Are you ready to get this show started?
I am ready to get it started. Let's introduce our amazing guests. You got their introduction. So I always love how you give introductions. Like, you make people feel
whatever,
like
JT, whatever. You're just putting that on me.
No. Like, when you introduce somebody, like, even when you introduce me, I'm like, it just feels so like grand and it's so important. So
all right, I'm gonna take you gas facing me right now, but I'm gonna take it, Janae. Thank you very much.
And you do this for real, like.
Well, I want to introduce an amazing she, her, hers by the name of Jasmen Rogers. She's awesome. I have my own story about Jasmen. I'll probably get into it once we bring them on, but she's the founder and principal visionary at Folding Chair Consulting. She's a facilitator and strategist with expertise in building spaces to impact organizational alignment internally and externally, centering the issues of racial, gender, and LGBTQ plus equity. Being a highly sought after speaker and coalition builder, Jasmen has worked several years at the intersection of racial and gender justice by advancing state and local legislation, co-creating circular that make the political process accessible and organizing movements towards social change. Jasmen has organized state legislative in favor for policy initiatives, has curated several spaces that have brought together tens of thousands of people towards a shared political agenda, has worked with local and international organizations, amplifying meaningful diversity, equity, and inclusion, and has recruited over $500,000 in small and large dollar donations to fund a variety of work. She currently serves on the Broward County Commissioner of Status of Women, was recently named one of the 150 most influential people in Florida politics, and is a former Wilton Manors Community Affairs Advisory Board member. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Jasmen Rogers. Hey. We're not going to bring on right now because I want to, do the bio on our next guest, and then we'll bring them on collectively. All right. So stand by for Jasmen. But right now, our next guest is Brian C. Johnson. Prior to his role as president CEO of the Minority Builders Coalition, Brian worked at at-risk youth in Broward County for nearly 20 years. After realizing that poverty was the consistent root causing the troubles for children and families he served and what they were facing, Brian shifted his career focus to community economic development. As president and CEO of Minority Builders Coalition, Brian actively supports a network of minority and small construction-related businesses throughout South Florida. He has helped to create, retain jobs for workers in construction fields and organization builds and preserve safe and affordable housing for more than 600 seniors and low-income families every year. Brian also has been the CEO of the Capacity Coaches, a private consulting firm assisting policymakers and projects to maximize community benefits on procurements and projects. He also is the CEO of Ad Astra Real Estate Group, LLC. All right. As a community servant, Brian C. Johnson has created or helped create numerous historic institutions that have been serving our communities for decades. These includes the founder of Community-Based Connections, an award-winning children family services organization, founding board member of the Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce, founder of the Zeta Chi Lab Lighters Mentoring Program, and founder of the Central Broward Kiwanis Foundation. As an advocate, Brian has created a large footprint of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts throughout South Florida. He served on the board of directors for the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. He had a 3-term chair of the board of Broward County Small Business Development and Advisory Board, and he's one of the chief advocates for small minority businesses in South Florida. I can go on and on and on. I'm going to skip to Brian served 7 years as an elected member of the City Commission at the City of West Park, 4 of which he was vice mayor. During his time in office, Brian translated his passions as an advocate into legislative practices by creating numerous policies, programs that expanded prosperity to the residents and the businesses in the city. And he's a proud graduate of Dillard High School. He receives his bachelor's degree at Morehouse College, MBA from University of Phoenix, and doctoral studies at Nova Southeastern University. He is a proud life member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. I'm surprised I didn't get the year, but I'm sure he'll give it to us when he comes on. He's a life member of the Morehouse College National Alumni Association. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Brian C. Johnson.
Hey, come on now with a resume. Come on. The new resumes are long and impressive.
I know, but you gotta give them their flowers and let them know what time it is.
Yes.
Yay!
All right. What's happening?
Welcome.
Hey, Janae. In the words of that great Negro philosopher Tupac, y'all got 2 of Broward County's most gangster political athletes in the same mother effing place at the same mother effing time.
And y'all read the longest bios,
Right.
Hey, listen, we enjoy helping to give people their flowers. Listen, man, y'all have earned every word I said, man. So I'm not mad at it. We gotta let the people know what you did, done, and are doing.
Thank you.
For sure.
No, for sure. Look, first of all, I want to jump right in because, like I said earlier, America is a ghetto right now, and it's the Wild Wild West. And so, conversation about politics and government without talking about what went down on Saturday. And so, just to frame it, even from a Florida perspective, and ladies first, Jasmen, we'll kick it off with you. President Trump, there was a shooting, as we all saw, the glass broken around the world, the scene around the world. There was a shooting at his rally in Pennsylvania. What are your thoughts? You can give us your thoughts overall, but also too, I want us to dig into your thoughts on the Florida gun laws and like where we play into this national conversation about gun safety and things like that. And Brian, we'll kick it to you after Jasmen. So Jasmen, ladies first, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, overall, I'm not going to give my thoughts because, like I wrote on Twitter, I have led marches. I've done work against police violence. I've been followed by the police and been on people's watch lists. So I'm not trying to go down that rabbit hole again. Yeah. But what I will say is I think it's ironic that this political party that loves their guns wants people to have access to all the guns at all times, like give the babies guns, everybody can have guns, any type of guns or whatever. And now we're having to have this conversation about an assassination attempt, right? And like, how do you talk about that with this young person, this 20-year-old man that got on the roof with this gun to attempt to shoot a former president, right? So regardless of how you feel about Trump, regardless of how you feel about all of that, like we can put that to the side for a second to say, so what y'all gonna do now about these guns, right? Like, how do we feel now about guns in this country and who gets to access them? And the fact that people were injured and somebody died at that rally because of like how easy it is to get guns in this country. And then when you think about Florida and how recently they just took away you having to have a concealed weapons permit, right? Like people can just be walking around out here with guns concealed in the grocery store. And that's just supposed to be okay in Florida. And I am not okay with that. That is terrifying for me as a Black person. That just feels so scary. The folks are on the edge of something every single day. And now they're allowed to be armed. And in a state where stand your ground is the law of the land, I got a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, a lot of fear of what's going to happen in Florida going forward.
Wow.
Yeah.
Valid.
And Brian, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'll tell you this. If you think about the common sense changes to gun laws, the ones that are most universally supported across all demographics, none of them would have helped here. For example, we want universal background checks. Well, this shooter had zero criminal history. We want red flag laws to at least try to temporarily restrict access to guns for people who have serious mental illness or have demonstrated some signs that they will be a threat to themselves or others. There is no record indicating that this shooter has ever experienced any of that. The real challenge here, y'all, is that the recurring problem for mainstream pro-gun America is this shooter looks just like them and their children.
Yeah.
So to quote an article I read, Crooks embodies the familiar profile of an American mass shooter, a young white man isolated from peers and armed with a high-powered rifle, because that keeps being the profile of the people who keep perpetuating the mass shootings. There are no real good ideas on how to take guns out of the hands of the good old white American male. So the only point of contention here, though, is the fact that he allegedly used an AR-style weapon. And there are some debate about whether or not those are considered weapons of mass destruction, whether or not those are considered automatic rifles. But the key part about the debate regarding the assault rifles has to do with the magazine capacity. There is some agreement that we should limit the gun magazines to 10 shots or less. Well, again, even that wouldn't have worked here because he only got off up to 5 shots. So none of the common sense gun laws would have prevented this. We think that there's a charged political environment that has motivated even a Republican who he was to want to take this kind of action. And I think that's where the discussion should be. How do we heal that charged political racial environment that is seemingly boiling over to even Republicans want to harm Republicans?
That part.
That's enough. We can say goodbye. That was we did it.
The podcast over. Yeah, thanks for bringing okay, Brian. Well, PK, we haven't even really had a chance to discuss it. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on it, PK.
Listen, mine are a little different. Like I try to be fair, right? In everything, I always try to look at the fairness of things, right? So whether, I try to keep a very bipartisan energy, and being bipartisan should be about fairness, right? Regardless of what side you're on, I'm trying to look for fairness to connect the two. So I'd be remiss if I didn't think about Pelosi's husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who clearly was attacked with a hammer at his home that was about the party that his wife, it was a political attack. Let's just call it what it was. We don't know if this situation was, like Brother Brian said, he was a Republican. There's no note or anything to say even why. I mean, the quick little research I've done, the kid used to come in military gear and he was teased and bullied a lot. So versus shooting up the school, which normally would have been the motive for a kid like that to do, maybe he wanted to up the guy from the school shooting here in South Florida and wanted to level it up, you know what I mean? And say, hey, let me just go after the former president. He's going to be right where I live and all of that. So that was kind of my thought process. But again, I'm going to take it back to the fairness part. I remember that when Pelosi's husband was attacked, it was a joke to a lot of the Republicans.
Yeah.
Including, I'm going to say the T word, Trump, but I usually call him Cheeto Satan. But even he mocked Paul Pelosi.
Yeah. Right? So I just look at how everything comes full circle because he did make fun of that situation. And there was no level of empathy that he's able to receive now, even from the Democrats, even from the president, which is the right thing to do, right? So they're just, they're doing the right thing, but it's just so ironic how that works, So that was the point that I would like to just kind of point out, how everything kind of comes full circle. Like when that man was attacked specifically for political, and then now that's what I hear a lot of Republicans are using, saying, oh, because of the Dems, this is what happened, but there's actually no proof to that. Mm-hmm. And like I said, Brother Brian already said that the guy was a Republican, you know what I'm saying? So, so that's what I'll say about that. And what was your take on it too, JK? Since we're all on it, right?
Awesome prayers is what I'm giving out. Honestly, like you all said it beautifully, and I echo everyone's sentiments. I think just from a personal standpoint, I immediately had intense anxiety and fear of like the world that this could create, with people randomly like wanting to be vigilantes and revengeful. And I've been having conversations with people about like loading up on guns and, just even where I am, where our home is now in North Carolina, it's a very rural area. A friend came and visited me, and he said that he saw somebody with a KKK, either like pinned in a white supremacy ring or something like that, that signaled that they were a part of that. And so, living between North Carolina and Florida, like right now, and those two like wild Southern states, I don't feel as safe as a Black woman walking in these streets. And I'm just praying that this doesn't turn into some 1960s energy where, I was just like, I don't feel like getting to the point of where I'm in the Publix and I'm like, let me hurry up and get out of here. Like, what neighborhood am I going to? Like, being, like, I just don't want to be in that type of survival mind state. And I feel like unless our leadership gets some type of control, like Brian said, like the issue is like, why are people feeling like they need to do these type of violent acts? Like, if we don't get some control over that, like I'm losing a little bit of hope in us as a society. And I just don't even want to get there because you feel like I want to live in protection mode. Like, I don't like being easy breezy. Like, but I'm feeling less and less of that in the South as a whole. Like, just not feeling it.
Yeah. I find it also very interesting that PK mentioned, it's the right thing to do to send the thoughts and prayers and all of that. But I remember where I was when I was watching them climb the walls of the Capitol. I remember that feeling of watching, this all go down and being like, are they climbing the wall? They're climbing the wall. What is going on?
What am I watching?
Exactly. I remember that. And I remember that no Republican was calling for like, we need to turn the temperature down. We need to calm it down. Like, they were inciting it. They were making it worse. So why is it always that I'm not saying that Democrats should, get on Twitter and be like, we ride at dawn, it's over, like, let's go get it. Not saying that. But also, why is it always us that's expected to have this moral high ground? And why is it always us that's expected to thoughts and prayers? Why is it always us that, like, Joe Biden and his campaign pulled out every commercial after that? Like, why is it always that we are getting the talking to be like, okay, now calm down, everybody calm down, when they literally were auctioning off Nancy Pelosi's gavel on the internet, right? Like, and we're threatening, like they said that if they found that lady, what they were going to do to her. And there was no requirement that they calm down, right? Like, they settle down. And I think that is also exhausting, that we on multiple levels, whether it's as Democrats, as people who are not Republican, as Black people, as whatever, don't get to express frustration and rage without people being like, settle down now. It's turn down the temperature. We need to come together and unite. Like, give them that energy, right? Like, they were the ones that climbed the Capitol. Not us.
Yeah.
So that's also very frustrating to me.
And Jasmen, in one regard, if I may real quickly, so we have this expectation of decorum, when we are either elected officials, leaders. So you kind of have to, even if you don't want to, and I declare sometimes I don't want to. You have to sort of moderate your initial instincts for the benefit of those who may be watching you. So I'll just be honest. As soon as I found out about it, I was at the HBCU picnic, and I immediately put up a meme making fun of it. But then I saw the reports that somebody died. And so I deleted that post just out of decorum. But then now I'm seeing not only is Cheeto Satan acting like he Tupac, he got shot in his ear when everybody is saying it was probably glass from a teleprompter. And not only are the Court 45 and the Negro peons who love them out here acting like we got to get T-shirts and he's raising a fist and it's going to motivate us. My point now is that if I can't laugh at it for looking like it was staged, then you can't be rallying around it, acting like it's supposed to be some political motivation. If we're going to all use some decorum, then let's respect the people who got hurt. Let's respect the people who died. And all of us act like we have some sense. Right. But to Jasmen's point, that's not happening on that side.
Right. Great point. Did you say Cheeto Satan? Like
Cheeto Satan.
Cheeto. Okay, got it.
That's right.
Okay, that's hilarious. That's freaking hilarious. Just switching gears. My next question is, and we'll start it off with you, Brian. What are things people can do to become educated voters, and why is it important to vote? And just a little bit of context. Like as we were saying earlier in the show, Just Vote Period is a huge part of our initiative and the work that we're doing here. So we always want everyone here to just reiterate the message of that, because that is a way for us to get equity and liberation and things in this country. So just wanted to know your thoughts on voting, and Jasmen, we'll come to you after.
So as PK, thanks for the question. As PK mentioned in the beginning, I spent 7 years as an elected official. And when people couldn't remember my name, they called me the bald guy with the bow tie. That's why I wear this outfit every time I present to the public. But I also got a nickname from DJ Sko during the pandemic. He and Shelby Rushing were on Hot 105 talking about politics and talking about what is it that we need to know and where do we get information from? And DJ Sko said, listen, I got one homeboy in politics, Brian Johnson over in West Park. He said, I follow him, I learn from him because he know how to make that politics stuff make sense to me. And so I walked away with that nickname, everybody's homeboy in politics, because I think that if we all just realize the utility of politics, the game of politics and how to win it, I think that we will have some powerful tool to use to advance our people. So if you look at my social media, you'll see that I use two specific hashtags. One, elections have consequences, and the other, you decide who decides. Elections have consequences, and you decide who decides. And the messages I'm sending are very clear. Politics affect our lives in many ways, whether we know about it or not, whether we want to get involved or not. It absolutely does affect who we are and how we move about the society. And then secondly, politicians are not some aliens who just fall out the sky into some city hall making decisions. These are people who live next to y'all, who require y'all votes to get to where they are. So one of the ways in which we have to educate ourselves is the first thing we got to do is we got to stop electing people and start selecting people. The difference is elections is usually somebody told us to vote for somebody. So we've been told because he went to school with our grandmama or he got some parties in the park that they're good people. So we will elect folk. What we need to do is select. We need to make sure that we understand who these people are, what their values are, what their experience has been, especially if they've been sitting in that seat already. And then we choose the people who we think match us. So at the very least, we must inspect what we expect. Some of our young folks particularly walk around saying, I don't deal with that politics stuff because it don't do anything for us, as if they don't know how politics affect them. But what I'm almost always find is none of them have stopped to inspect what they expect. You got people at the local level, the city level, the county level, the state level, and the federal level who are right now elected by voters to represent you. Why don't you go and look and see what they've done since they've been there? And if you don't like the results of their, if you're not satisfied with their productivity, then why don't you determine to replace them with somebody who you can feel better about? So you got to educate yourself. You got to select instead of elect, and you got to inspect what you expect.
Love that, Brian. Love that.
Come on now. Snap the fingers. I got the saddle on. It's so fitting. Jasmen, I would love to know from you, what can people do? What are some things people could do to become educated voters? And, you know, in your opinion, why is it important to vote?
So I agree mostly with Dr. Johnson here. Where I always push back on folks that are a little bit older than me is that they feel like the information is easy to find and easy to understand, and it's not. It's not. So even if that young person on the street that's like, I don't deal in politics, what is it doing for me, were to Google Florida House of Representatives, what they will find is a bunch of stuff that even I don't understand. Yeah. And whose responsibility is it then to break it down into something that they can understand and understand the impact, right? When I talk about this, I say everything down to the water you drink, the air you breathe, and how long you go to jail for weed is decided by an elected official. Yeah. That's something people could understand. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. In Georgia, when Stacey Abrams were running for governor, there was an organization separate from her, but motivated to get people to the poll that hire strippers. And I don't know if y'all remember that ad, get your booty to the polls.
We were in the meeting.
These strippers were on their polls talking about attorney generals and talking about legislators. That's the kind of work I'm interested in. That's the kind of work that's going to turn people out and get them to understand what's at stake, right? Andrew Gillum, when he ran, the language that he used when he said a hit dog on holler, my mama said, coming out to walk it like I talk it, had people listening to him, had people following him, had people showing up to vote, had people ready to vote for him, had formerly incarcerated people that could not vote calling to say, please vote on my behalf, right? That is what part of it is about identity, right? Like that's what happens when we have really dope young Black candidates in races. And that's also what happens where you're intimately connected to the policies that you want to change, right? If you've been impacted by incarceration, by pay inequity, by being LGBTQ, by all of these different things, you understand policy a little bit differently, and then you could talk about it a little bit differently. So I don't think that the full responsibility of folks not understanding politics and not engaging is on an individual. That's part of the problem. When we individually shame people, that changes nothing. I think it's on us as people that are interested in this, that have the time, the privilege, the resources, the whatever, to break it down for people, to then say, here's a resource that you can use, right? We made it plain, we made it simple, we made it clear for you to understand what's going on and what's at stake. If you want to talk about it, let's do it. And I think a perfect example of that is my conversation with Papa Keith the very first time that we met. I very well could have said, go to the democraticparty.gov and get all the information that you need. What would that have done to him? Right? Like, who could he have been if everybody that he asked questions of responded back and said, well, if you don't know what's going on, like, what's the problem? Politics is doing you. No. We gotta, those of us that have the information have to take the time to figure out what is the language that people understand. How do they understand? Where do they understand it? Some people understand it in church. Some people understand it on the corner. Some people will understand it in school. And how are we in all of those different places and making sure the message matches the place?
Really? That's come on now.
You get it too. You get it too. Great. Good job. Good job. We're gonna keep it rolling. We're gonna keep it rolling. We got two gangsters out of Broward for real. All right. So we've been getting some heat for being so Miami-Dade County. So we're very excited to have Broward in the building. So since we do have Broward in the building, what are some hot button issues in Broward politics and government that people should know about? regarding things like affordable housing, Black-owned business development, and criminal justice. Dr. Brian, I'd like to start with you, please.
Well, so this is the part of the show where I get myself in trouble because I try to be honest, regardless of whose feelings get hurt by the truth. And I'll do what I did in 2019 when I quoted that great Negro philosopher, J.T. Money. If the truth I speak should not offend you when you hear it, but if the mother effing shoe fits, wear it. And the reason that's the issue is because one of the biggest problems in Broward County is that there is a significant and dangerous absence of a real and assertive pro-Black political agenda. There's a dangerous and significant absence of a real and assertive pro-Black agenda, and that's kind of disappointing because amongst the Tri-County area, our proportion of the population is much Blacker in Broward than Miami-Dade and Palm Beach County. So you would assume that our politics are Blacker, and they're not. So, for example, as we have this conversation today, there are 54 Black elected officials in Broward County. That's not including the 11 judges. 54. That's as many as we've ever had. But together, 54 Black elected officials are less effective than when we only had 6 in 1989. So how is it possible that we can have 9 times more political representation and not have 9 times better conditions for our Black people? You want to know why? Because there will never be strength in numbers without the power of unity. And our folk, unfortunately, are not working together. And we got some of our folk who are wearing our jersey, but not playing for our team. You want to know something even more damning? I can ask any one of y'all who know about politics. In fact, I have been asking people, this has been kind of my long social studies experiment. We got 54 Black elected officials. Can you name me 5 who you would call and expect to be on the forefront, defending Black people from white supremacists, calling a racist, and can get other Black people together to defend ourselves? Can you name me 5? I've asked professionals, I've asked non-professionals, I've asked old people, I've asked young people, I've asked Black elected officials. And I have barely gotten anybody who can come up with 5 names out of 54 who they think can lead Black people in Broward County. That is a problem. That is a problem. So if anything, one of the biggest hot button issues is that we lost a lot of the momentum we had as Black elected officials. If you recall, we did protests to save Runcie. We did press conferences to save the Promise program. We operated as we had Juneteenth and State of Black Broward events as Black elected officials collaborating with our allies. That dissipated because a lot of those of us who led that movement ended up losing our seats. And those who came behind us didn't have the similar commitment to cohesion and unity to push our people forward. So if you ask me what's the most significant hot button issue in politics, it's the fact that we don't have a Black vanguard holding each other accountable and pushing the Black agenda.
Oh. Wow. Mic drop. Keep that energy going. Hot button issues in Broward politics and government, and people should know regarding affordable housing, Black-owned business development, and criminal justice. You can have at it, Jasmen.
I once again find myself agreeing mostly with Brian because I yes, 54 Black elected officials in Broward, like, agree that not everybody's playing on our team, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, like all of that. And I have also found myself asking the question, like, who is the person or people that can get everybody in a room to sit down and like have a conversation? Like, what does that look like? Because again, I'm gonna keep saying there's so much at stake, not only in Broward, but the state, this country, whatever. It's like, there's gotta be a place where Republicans came out with Project 2025. That's 100 organizations that set out a plan and have been implementing that plan for years, right? Like, we don't even have something like that for Broward, right? Let alone a city in Broward that includes not only the government, but also community organizations towards a future. And not only that, one thing that I am like flabbergasted by out of this Project 2025 is that they talk about these elections as if they've won. right? There's a part of their website where they are recruiting employees for the president's first day of office. And they're saying, if you want to be appointed, if you want to work in this administration, number one, here's the free trainings that you can watch and sign up to and be ready to go on day one and submit your resume. They are building a bench. They've been building a bench. You talk about Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio started off as an intern, and now we can't get rid of him, right? Like, so when I hear Brian talk, I also feel very deeply my own stories with Black elected officials in Broward and the ways I've been snubbed and the ways that I've been looked over as a Black person, as a Black woman. When I first told a Black man in elected office that I wanted to run for the seat after him, what he told me was, I'm really interested in mentoring Black men right now. So there's another seat that you could run for. Well, I did the thing, I lost. And then when his seat became available, he tried coming back to me to say, I can't find anybody. Will you do it now? No. Yeah. So also it's like, I'm looking at these Black elected officials, like, y'all are trying to stay in positions of power so long and stay focused on that for so long that you're not building a bench and building up people behind you. You're also not reading the room, right? Like, Black folks as an electorate are changing, right? The electorate is changing. What we care about as 30-something-year-olds, 40-something-year-olds are very different than a long time ago, right? Like housing crisis, student loans, you know, folks, my sister is 27 years old and just afforded to be able to move out of the house. Like, how are we talking about those issues without talking to young folks as if they're lazy, as if they don't want to do anything, as if they just need to pull themselves up by the bootstraps? Because there are some people, some Black folks that are using some of that same language that we hear from the outside to talk about our own people. And that is not a way, number one, that you bring people into politics and that you bring people into the issues that matter. It creates people that are very, very insular and focused on themselves because they're like, if I can't find community, then I'm going to make sure me and mine are good. And that's all I got. So when you talk about what's happening in Broward, one thing that strikes me, and in the intro, you mentioned that I'm on the Commission on the Status of Women in Broward, and I was the former chair. And I said in a meeting the other day, I really want Broward to be the democratic, like, mountains top that they say that we are. And I know that we're not, right? Like, we're getting more Republican right around our edges, like a little piece of toast. We're getting more Republican. Some of the policies that we pass are real weird sometimes, real concerning. The way people are supporting Republicans, even right now, when it comes to the school board and who folks want to be elected, real bizarre. So I'm just very, very concerned that Broward is going to be more exposed at this place where you're just Democrat in name only for whatever it means to be a Democrat, right? That people are wearing these wolves in sheep's clothing that are not taking us to the progressive promised land where people can get equity, right? Like where people can afford homes, where, you know, Broward has a high maternal death rate for Black women. High. Right? So it's like when you dig up underneath the covers, some of the old folks used to say your slip is showing. So when we talk about things like that, it's just like, are we really as blue in policy, not just in who gets elected, but in policy and in the ways people live as we claim to be? When we look at Sistrunk, the lowest income zip code in Broward County, the highest rates of maternal mortality, I think in the nation, in Sistrunk, and it's continuing to get gentrified and gentrified and gentrified. Like, people can't afford to live there anymore, but we can afford to put hotels up. We can afford to take away the only grocery stores that people have that already have low quality food. Like, there's so much in different corners of Broward that we need to tackle that's reflective of the nation as a whole and these big things. And then I also have hope, right? For people like State Attorney Harold Pryor, that is our age, is one of us, is really, really dope, and is really trying to do some good things related to criminal justice. We have folks like that. Ooh, my little light just turned off. We have folks like that are really trying to do dope work in Broward. There's some of our legislators that are trying to do incredible work in Broward. And to Brian's point, like, they can't do it alone, and they shouldn't do it alone. Like, what is it for us to come together and say the enemy is so much bigger than any of our individual political egos? We got to do something on behalf of people.
That was amazing, Jasmen. I just want to tack on, like, you know, because you brought me back to when I first moved to Broward County from New York. And I settled in Miramar. And I remembered that Broward was like the only place I could get a job because English was the second language in Miami, you know, when I first came here. So I remember I started working at Blockbuster corporate office. Like everything was just Broward for me because that was the one place where I was able to feel like a bit comfortable, you know. And so just hearing you know, run through all of that, I felt like, damn, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, born and raised in the county of Dade, Carroll City, Miami Gardens, like that's where I'm from. North Shore Hospital in North Miami, that's where I'm from. So coming to Broward was like, you moving on up, right? Like you're moving out of Dade, you're moving over on the west side. My parents still live in West Pines. Like that was supposed to be the thing. And now when I go out there, sometimes it's like, what is happening here? Like, what is going on in government? What is going on? Like, what is happening? And I think it's just, it's not anything unique to Broward. I think it's a sign of like, people are tired, people are hungry, people don't have enough money, the bills are getting higher, like everything. It's just compiling on people differently from day to day to day. And Broward's just pretending as if like everything's okay here.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Wow. Good stuff there, Jasmen. Janae?
Yeah. I'm switching gears just slightly because we're still talking about like hot button issues in Broward County, but I wanted to just pivot a bit and get you guys' opinion on some ballot issues and top candidates that'll be on the ballot for Broward County for the August primary. And I wanted you guys to just kind of bring a spotlight to some of those ballot issues and candidates that people should be aware of, in your opinion. And Jasmen, you know, I'll kick it back to, start it off.
Yeah, so I think first we're going to level set, and people are like, why are we voting all the time? They don't understand that there's some cities that have March elections. There was a presidential preference primary in March. Now we're here in August, and then we got to vote again in November. So August is when you have your primary. If you've chosen a party, you get to vote amongst the people in that party that are on the ballot. So if you are a registered Democrat, you're voting for Democrats on your August ballot. And if there's nobody else that's in that race, then that person wins. And you don't have to vote for them again in November. And then come November, we vote amongst everybody. So that's what we're doing on August 20th. So things that are happening is legislative seats, right? Like all of the House of Representatives, the Florida state legislature is up for election. And that happens every 2 years for the House of Representatives. There's also going to be some Florida state senators that you see on your ballot, whether you're Democrat or Republican, you'll see them there. If you are no party affiliated, you won't have those people on your ballot unless there is a no party affiliated in one of those seats. And the same thing down ballot for the rest of the seats. There will be statewide congressional seats that are on there. The person that's going to be put up to run against Rick Scott will be on all of our ballots. So you have Debbie McCusker-Powell or Stanley Campbell, and there's a couple other people in that race that are running that we need to pay attention to. So that's going to be top line. And then there's also some school board races. The big stuff comes in November. So of course, that's when we vote for president. And then that's when the ballot initiatives drop in November that we're going to be voting for things. Brian, did I miss anything?
Well, I just want to underscore, highlight, italicized school board, because to your point, we've been saying that much of politics is local. And while it's called primary in August, as if it's some sort of a pregame to November, the reality is almost all of the people who matter to you most, except for the city people, because they're now on either November or March. But just about everybody else, your county commissioners, your state legislature, your judges, and your school board members all get elected in August. And so if you're not careful, you will be just looking to November at a presidential race, having totally overlooked all the people who matter to you being elected in August. And then you wonder why whoever gets elected as president don't change how you live on a local basis. So you got to pay attention to August. And I want to highlight the school board races, because here we are almost in unison. And I'm happy to see this, not just nationwide, but in some cases internationally focused on Project 2025. Some of us have been trying to sound the alarm that Republicans are a serious problem. This is not your grandmama's Republican Party. This is not just having a separate way of looking at getting to the same goal. These people are unapologetically racist and Christian nationalists, and that's all they are. So that's why I am very anti anybody who supports this nonsense. So when last week we saw that Moms for Liberty, one of the 100 organizations who wrote Project 2025, has a chapter in Broward County, has picked 5 candidates. That is the majority, y'all, for school board. Had a meeting with those candidates and promoting those candidates. That in and of itself gave us all the mission statement. We got to show up in August because Project 2025 is on the ballot right here in Broward County. All of them got to go. I don't care how reasonable some people may think, well, I don't think this person will do no, listen, they took a phone call from Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty would never call Brian C. Johnson or Jasmen Rogers because they know we don't vibe like that. So they would have had the first thing that you think like us. They invited them to a meeting. They showed up to a meeting to represent and hear Moms for Liberty cheer for them. Moms for Liberty has them on a website. So why in the hell would I ever think that they just showed up to a meeting and maybe they don't want to do what Moms for Liberty asked them to do? I'm not willing to take that chance with my children. Every single one of them got to be voted against. And if you go to my Facebook page, every single day I'm on them. Because we got to understand, if we go huff and we gonna puff about Project 2025 on August 20th would be the first test of Project 2025's ability to pierce what is usually strongly Democratic Broward County. If we fail that test, I don't want to hear no complaints in November. August 20th, we got to vote against every Moms for Liberty candidate for school board because it's just that serious.
Yeah.
Wow. I hope my teachers that are listening are paying attention.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
wait a minute.
We just went to Brian C. Johnson School. We went to Dr. Brian C. Johnson School.
2 out of the 5 Moms for Liberty candidates are Black. Let that go.
Wow.
Go to my Facebook page. You'll see what I'm talking about.
I have a quick follow-up for you guys, because you said some of your ballot issues are coming up for Broward County in November. Can you guys let us know some of those like specific ballot issues that'll be in Broward County?
I don't have the one specifically in Broward, which I mean, should be case in point for if I don't have that yet, then how can we expect other people to have it and be ready? So there's that. But I do know some of the statewide ones that we need to be paying attention to. Amendment 3 is about marijuana and recreational marijuana. So it's not perfect, but we're not going to let perfect be the enemy of progress in this situation. We need to be supporting the legalization of marijuana. And then Amendment 4 enshrines or makes it concrete in the Constitution that folks can have access to an abortion when they need it, up to the point of viability. And I know that's not, I don't want to call it complicated for Black folks. I think it's just a topic that we need to have different language around. We need to have some real deep conversations with a lot of love and a lot of care. And white women need to get out the way for us to be able to do that. And we need to support Amendment 4. Everybody knows and loves someone that has an abortion, that has had an abortion, whether they've told you or not. And we need to vote like that and vote to support those folks and to vote to support, the folks we don't know that just need access to life-saving medical care.
Yeah. One of the reasons we don't know about Broward specific ballot issues is I think that by charter they have until the end of September to finalize and submit final language for the ballot. So if there are some proposals floating around, whether or not they make the actual ballot would depend on their ability to finalize the language. They have to meet the state criteria for ballot language in terms of its comprehensibility and what have you. And then it goes on a ballot in November. So we're about a month or so away from knowing for sure what to expect on the ballot if they're going to be any local referendums. But I do want to point to something that Jasmen spoke about in terms of the constitutional amendments. Because if you ask me, I think both of those constitutional amendments, recreational marijuana and abortion access, have a superior chance to be passed by voters. But if there's anything we've learned, and another my hashtag, Republicans are the problem, because what they've proven is that when you give them the supermajority, they essentially pretty much think that they are kings. And so if you think about what happened in 2018 when we passed a constitutional amendment that gave automatic restoration of rights to felons, that was a 65% voter approval. And so it met the legal threshold to be a constitutional amendment. But what happened? Our governor, with his supermajority in the Republican legislature, decided that they want to convolute the definition of who qualifies. And because they made it so confusing to determine whether or not you qualify, there were some of our people who believed that I qualify for automatic restoration. So guess what they did? They went and voted, and they ended up being put in handcuffs on TV because governor was trying to make a point about illegal voting. But when he set people up to be arrested for improperly voting because they technically didn't meet his definition of the qualification. So it's one thing for us to vote on them. It's another thing for us to hold the governor and the Republican legislature accountable to go with the will of the people. Or we can make sure on the August 20th election, wherever we have friends throughout the state, we have less Republicans who are elected.
I'd like to break that down a little bit more. And I feel like this is a place where would love for y'all to have like a civic lesson on the show, because I think we need to break it all the way down for people to understand where power lies and at like what level, right? I love state policy because I think that state policy is the most important and the most powerful policy. So in the case, for example, that we have, let's say, a Biden as president, but we have a DeSantis as our governor, whatever Biden tries to do good at the top will never make it to Florida because our governor is going to stop it. If we have a DeSantis as governor at the state level and a crazy ass legislature right there, whatever a local government does, like let's say Daniela Levine Cava, related to a living wage or making sure folks that work outside can have heat breaks and water breaks, the governor and the legislature of the state can say no and slap that down. So I believe that the state is the buffer, which makes it so powerful. And that's why the Republicans came for states after Obama was elected.
Yep.
After we got that Democratic win, the Republicans were like, okay, cool. Like, y'all take your victory lap. We're coming for your states, because they understood that when you get state power, no matter who's the president, the states can control so much.
Yep.
Now, even up under the states, right? If you're concerned about your schools, your trash cans, the lights on your street, crime in your city, things like that, your local government needs to be really, really strong and supportive of the people. Otherwise, you have a jacked up day to day, right? If the police department, which is very local, is jacked up day to day, what does that look like in your community? What does that look like for little Black boys and Black girls? What does that look like if you have a crazy ass Republican mayor of a county full of immigrants that says we will not be a sanctuary city and we kicking y'all out, right? Like, what are the implications for all of those different levels of government? And that's super important to me, because when we go into a presidential election cycle, everybody is blaming the president for things. Part of it rightfully so, right? Like if you get up there and act like you doing all this stuff for everybody, don't be surprised when people come to you and they're like, well, why does my life suck? Right? So we're going to keep that same energy. But people also need to understand, again, the air that you breathe is controlled by every single level of government. So you gotta vote down ballot. You gotta be interested all the way down to the tippy bottom of your ballot, all the way down to, my dad says, the dog catcher that's at the bottom. Whoever's the elected mosquito and dog catcher, you have to be interested in what that person is, because they control some aspect of your everyday life. And I think, again, that's the way to break it down to people. That's not just like vote blue no matter who, or vote for Biden. To me, it's not about vote for Biden. Like, do what you feel compelled to do at the top of your ballot. I am most concerned with people understanding the implications or what's at stake at every level of government, because then we don't have to teach them the same lesson over and over again. And they can't be tricked by any one political candidate because they know the questions to ask. They know that, oh, the state legislature means you're supposed to do this, this, and this about the budget. I got a question for you about that. It's not about watching a commercial, like Brian said at the beginning, and being like, oh, you look nice, I'll vote for you, right? Mm-hmm. Like my mom, who votes every election and has me for a daughter, called me the last election cycle, was like, who do I vote for? And I said, well, who do you see on TV? And she said, I see a blonde lady and a cop. Didn't even remember them people's names. And you know how much money goes into those advertisements, how much money goes into elections? Yeah. And you're not saying nothing that actually sticks with people and gets them to really understand what you want to do for them, not just who you're against, but what you want to do for them to change their lives. Because that's what the Republicans are really about. The Republicans act like we don't exist. They just make their plans as if we're losing. And that's exactly what we're doing. So I think that that's also something that people need to just very, very keen on. And again, I think that's our responsibility to do it. It's not going to happen in schools. We can't depend on political parties to do it very clearly. But I think we can have conversations with people that's like, okay, let's talk about why your cousin just got arrested for marijuana and how you can do something about that.
Right.
Let's talk about why you just got arrested for a suspended license and they kept you in jail for a month and a half. You lost your job. Now you all house. Like, let's talk about why that happened in every single political position that had something to do with why that happened to you. And I think that's the conversations we need to be having with people.
Good stuff. Good stuff. That kind of leads into this next question that I have for you. Given voter apathy among younger voters, what are some things the Broward County Democratic and Republican parties need to do to engage voters, especially our young ones?
Jasmen, you want to go first?
Number one, you can't engage young voters if none of your staff are young, if none of your people are young, if none of your electeds are young. In the same way you can't talk to Black people if you don't have no Black people on staff. Like, that to me feels very obvious. And number two, we keep going at people that either are not voters or we think are not voters with this air of like, you just don't even know. You're like, you don't even know what we had to do. Like, just real ick. Like, none of us want to be talked to like that. And yet we talk to other people like that. Instead of trying to hear from them, what's your biggest problem? Like, what are you most worried about? What brings you hope? What brings you joy? What scares you? Like, what are your nightmares? And having a real conversation about those different things and then integrating that into the way that we talk to voters. I feel like we're not willing to listen and then adjust in a way that actually meets the moment. I don't know how many times I've had to yell at Democratic people to say, none of this is in Creole. The third most spoken language in Florida, and y'all have no materials in Creole. You keep talking to people in Spanish. You keep yelling at Haitian folks to show up for you at the last minute, but don't have nothing in Creole. Like, make that make sense. But then you can't have stuff in Creole if none of your staff is Haitian, right? Like, you're not willing to invest in those different types of things. So to me, part of it is obvious. PK and I also just talked the other day about how some of these organizations, again, with nobody under the age of 40, is like, I know what'll get young voters out. let's put a concert together with DJ Khaled, Rick Ross, T.I., and some chicken wings. They'll come to that. And then nobody comes. Nobody comes. And they're looking at y'all crazy, right? Like, beyond just assuming what it is that people want, what they care about, what they believe, how they talk, and just throwing some things together. Like, how are you actually real deep in community and say, okay, I hear you and I have the power to do something about that. Because they'll do it when they feel like it. Remember when Biden was like, please deliver me a Senate, I'm forgiving student loans, and people showed up for him. And look at us now, just dumb, just dumb, right? Like, it's just like, and I think part of it is also the accountability. Like, how are we holding these elected officials accountable to say, fool me once, you got us, but like, we about to hold your, and I think that's what's happening now with Biden, that people are like, we're not stupid. Like, you're gonna have to come harder and with something better than that.
Yeah. Brother Brian.
I asked Jasmen to go first because there's a question about the sensibilities of young voters. In case you all haven't noticed, I look like I done made 50, so I wouldn't consider myself young at all anymore. And so I wanted to defer to her in terms of answering the question about young voters. But here's an additional consideration, and that is that young people are inheriting a society that we as older folk have passed on. And when it comes to politics, we've given them a automobile that has all kinds of problems with it. When it comes to politics, we haven't made sure that our community has a good system of rewards and consequences, basic human behavior. People repeat what they get rewarded for, and they stop doing what they get consequences for. So we've allowed them to look at people sit in office for 25 darn years and make the assumption that they must be there because they're good, because otherwise, if they were bad, somebody would have voted them out, when we can't look our young people in the face and tell us exactly what happened. Because we're still voting for people because they give us concerts in parks, while they're giving other people billion-dollar contracts. So I have to be honest about where I stand on the timeline, and make sure that where I am, which is trying to fill some of the gaps in the natural ways in which our young people should be learning about this game. So, for example, if you go back to my Facebook page, you may see that in February of 2020. I decided to respond to an invite by a group of mostly young folk, including Jasmen Rogers, who called themselves the Black People's Caucus. And this was a presidential primary period. And so what they decided to do was take out this whole idea of Republican and Democrat. They had this exercise where they had a list of policies with no names on them.
Yeah.
So they essentially said, for education, for criminal justice, for economic development, for all these different things that are important to Black folk, what did each of these candidates promise? And our job as a group of participants, and I think I was the only elected official there. I was the only elected official there. But let me tell y'all what happened. I participated. I went to the boards, I looked at the list of the promises, and I picked out the ones that made the most sense to me. That was the closest to who I was. We sat down as breakout groups and we discussed it just to make sure we were clear that this is what the people were saying and how that would help Black people. And then they asked us, based upon give us your priority issues, and then they were going to uncover the names. When they uncovered those names, two people stood out, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. I didn't mention Joe Biden, nor did I mention Cheeto Satan.
Yep.
But they were on the board. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders stood out. And when I tallied up all the things I liked the most, the person who it looked like I seemed to be more aligned with was Bernie Sanders. So guess what I did? I voted for Bernie Sanders. And then I got on Facebook and told y'all I did. And got a whole bunch of blowback from the Democratic Party.
Wow.
Wow.
But that's a part of the problem. That's a part of the problem, Brian, and that's what we're seeing now that's going on with the especially the situation with the debate and how Biden came out of it. It's like we're seeing something and you're trying to tell me that I'm not seeing exactly what I'm seeing, and everybody else is seeing it, and you're like, nope, no, that's not it. And that's what you went through then too. You know what I'm saying? We're getting that pushback or whatever the case may be, is that they're trying to tell you like, no, don't believe that what Jasmen and them had you do. Forget all of that. You know, this is what we need you to focus in on. And that's a part of the problem.
The two simple rules I have right now moving forward in trying to educate people on politics and how to play the game. You don't have to know everything about the political process, but I declare to you there are two tried and true positions that you could take, and you would be very, very close to the right side of politics. One, trust Black women. Two, you got to find a way to engage young people. Yeah. Because I used to call myself young and dumb when I first took over Minority Builders Coalition. I'm young enough to try anything and too dumb to see failure. We want young people in the political game who are young enough to try anything and too dumb to see failure the way some of us old scared people do. You gotta have them involved in the process.
That part.
Yeah.
That part.
Yeah. I think it's I also think about, again, I'm the oldest of three. My youngest sister, she's 27. She lives in Florida. And I'm like, in 10 years, South Florida is going to be underwater. Like, what kind of conversation? Like, how do young people get to vision for a future when, like Brian said, they're being gifted with the broke down car and expected to be, have a lot of gratitude for it and thankful for it. Even Congresswoman Maxine Waters, bless her heart, and she's done incredible things. But the fact that you get on stage and you say, well, hell, I'm older than Joe Biden. Like, that's not the flex you think it is, Miss Ma'am. Like, that is not the flex that you think it is. Number one, on the one hand, it's like, and you're more lively. Like, now we can talk about that it's not about age. Something is wrong, like PK said. But then also, like, Maxine, what are you doing to bring somebody up behind you? Like, at what point do you step out of the way and say, I've fought my good fight? Like, I have done my thing. I am proud of the legacy that I have left behind. And I don't have to cling to this power anymore because I know we got good folks coming. Like, this world is theirs now. The fact that I saw on Twitter, somebody said the fact that our Congress is being hijacked by people who are going to make policies that they will never have to see the true repercussions of. Yeah. I was like, oh, like they won't be alive to understand the impact of the policies that they are passing right now. It's so selfish, right? So it's like, also, how do we have that conversation? And how do young people have that conversation, right? Without being told like all types of craziness about who they are, what they believe in. And how do we also have an accountability conversation that, again, is like, let's be real, that if you ask so many people who they're voting for if the election was happening today, and I did this over the weekend, there's a lot of people I know that are very, very clear that they do not want Trump. Great. But what Democrats keep taking for granted is they think that just because you won't vote for Trump means you're automatically voting for Biden. And that's not what that means. Like, that is not what that means.
Can I Jasmen, because you're on to something that I never got a chance to speak about that it's just so alive right now. And you said it too in a neat way too, Brother Brian. It would have been so wicked if the Democrats had jumped on the hype that AOC was having at that time. Remember, like they had this thing going like, oh man, they had the Republicans hating them. If they had taken that and had moved on that without being scared and just knowing like, yeah, we're gonna use the same tactics that you're using on us. We're gonna hit it right back to you. Have Biden fall back and put those women up like, yep, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
You would like, I felt it in my gut. Like that would have really, even if it didn't go all the way, it would have set like the tone.
Yep.
It would have set the tone for how and where things need to be. But look at it. Look what it has become since that. Yeah. Like you don't even hear about AOC and them like that no more. That energy is like died out.
It's worse than that, PK, though. It's worse than that because the legislators or the Congress folk who were considered the squad have been under some serious attack lately because they've been doing exactly what young people and Black people are saying we want our people to do. But this is the part where we have to have a two-sided mirror. One side of the mirror looking out at the community saying, y'all need to do better by us and make sure that when you are in office, you are doing the things that we need you to do to improve our lives. But the other side of the mirror looking back at us. And how is it that we have people who said, okay, I'm going to say the things that the rest of my colleagues don't want to say. And yet even the colleagues will censor them and abandon them and put up a primary to the point where Hillary Clinton supported an opponent to Jamar Bowman and he's no longer in office anymore.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
But part of what I'm saying is that we got to be clear. If that's who we want, that's who we support. And we got to be there to defend them when they are who we tell them to be.
Yep. Yep. I mean, and I kind of want to pivot a little bit. This will be my follow-up question. And PK, you can look at the questions that we had. Jasmen and Brian kind of even answered it. I want to talk about the last one I do want to ask, but I wanted to pivot just based off of what you guys said. Is there a way to circumvent this in your mind? Like we're talking about like the issues and the problems and like we kind of identified like there's an issue. What can the people do to say, hey, yeah, I like an AOC, yeah, I like a Jasmen or a Brian, like because you both have ran for office or were elected. Like, what can the people really do? Because I think that's also a part of the issue as well, where people feel powerless. They feel like, yeah, I voted, yeah, I did this. Because real talk, like the Democratic Party, we already know the Republican Party and their issues, but the Democratic Party, to me, in my opinion, is there are a lot of liberal, well-meaning white people who want to tell everybody else what to do, and they set the tone. And even if you do have people in the party who are radical and who want to bring progressive thought, they're like, no, because we all heard about the Democratic infighting, like where there's the generational divide and everything. It's almost like they're running the show, but it's like the people are like, we don't even want to deal with y'all. Like, how do we even circumvent that? Like Dwight told us something where the largest party in Florida is unaffiliated party. Like it's not Democrat, it's not Republican. It's like people who are saying, I'm not even going to choose a party. So like, what do we do at this point? Because not engaging can't be the issue, but these political parties aren't engaging, especially if we're going to talk about the blue party, with that aligns with a lot of Black people's in minorities issues. Like, how do we be like, okay, it's, it's so many words, fuck what y'all got going on, we finna do this, like this the agenda, this who we go, this who we putting up. How do we do that? Like, do you guys have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, you just said it. Like you literally just said it. I think it's a lot of we, and it's a lot of conversation. It's a lot of like, fuck this. We got to do something about it, and standing by that in a real way. I truly believe down to my bones, organized people will always beat organized money. And I like, as much money as they try to throw at people, like there is a way that we can organize strategically and beat that. And I also say that knowing that we have to redefine our win sometimes, right? Like sometimes a win is not just about winning a political office. And that's part of the problem with these folks, is that they are winning the office for themselves and not on behalf of people. So like, what did it get us to have this person in elected office with the D behind their name if they're not doing anything? Because at the end of the day, we know best how to take care of ourselves. So regardless of who's in office, we could do, organized people will always beat organized money. So I think we need to come together. Well, I know we need to come together and have more of those conversations, get organizations together. If the political party don't want to come along, like that's up to them, because there's more of us that do not go to those boring meetings than there are that do go to the meetings. So like when I look at the numbers for Broward, I looked it up earlier, the numbers of NPA in Broward are growing, and nobody's talking about that. because to become no party affiliated in Broward, you have to take action. So these aren't people that are like, fuck all this, I'm done, I'm out, I don't want. Those people went online, they went to the office and they said, I am making a choice. They made a choice to shift their party. That means they're capable of making a whole lot more choices. They have the power, the autonomy, the will to make a bunch of more choices. And I'm sure they didn't make that choice flippantly, right? Like something went into that choice. So what are we giving those people that know what's at stake in a closed party state? What are we saying to them is like, what are we going to do when folks are like, this is all a mess and none of this actually represents justice, equity, democracy, fair, whatever it is to me. And this is the choice that I feel like I have to make for me and mine. So I feel like, I mean, like, we got to have those conversations. I think people like you two that are doing platforms like this and Just Vote Period that are saying, I don't know what else to do, but I'm going to use my platform, right? I don't know what else to do, but we're going to have this conversation right here. I'm going to be on the radio talking about this. I don't know what else to do, but I'm going to talk to Black women. I'm going to talk to my family. I'm going to make sure the people that live around my mom know when it's time to vote. I'm going to make sure my neighbors are ready. We putting out yard signs. We knocking door, like, I'm not knocking any more doors. I've knocked enough doors, but like we know that like from wherever we are, there is something we can do and somebody that we can talk to from a level of empathy and humanity and seeing each other. That's also not about converting Republicans. Like those are not our people. So the amount of money that Democrats are spending trying to convert Republicans is a waste when our people are right here almost begging for something to believe in. Let's give it to them.
Yeah. And I'll add on to that. What we have to also do, in addition to giving them a motivated why, we have to give them a believable what. In other words, the juice got to be worth the squeeze. The worst thing that can happen, JT and PK, as you all endeavor to try to increase voter excitement, increase voter participation and turnout, the worst thing that can happen to y'all is that y'all are successful in getting all these young people excited about elections, and they show up and they vote and nothing changes. They can't see anything that changes. So the worst thing you can do with a already skeptical young population is to put them in a situation where the operation is successful, but the patients still die. We got to make sure we're absolutely clear exactly what we want the people who we vote for to do. And we have to have a way to go back and inspect what we expect. So they'll know that we will be coming to commission meetings. We will be looking at minutes online. We will be looking at how you voted. We will be looking at what projects you supported. We're going to ask you for some specific things. And how you respond to us now is going to dictate how we respond to you the next time your butt's on the ballot. Right. And so one of the things that I've done, for example, to try to fill this gap is when I was an elected official, who's also an advocate for economic development, I went about trying to teach communities of Black people what to ask for. That we know that they're going to show up at our churches during election time. We know they're going to be in the MLK parade. They're going to shake hands, kiss babies, and throw your favorite candy out at your children. But what we don't know is what exactly are we asking them for? And so I did a PowerPoint where I taught Black communities exactly what to ask for so that they can see the success of their politicians in their bank account. There were specific procurement policies, specific disparity studies, specific policies that I've tried, that I've advocated for, that any of them can do. Guess what else I did? I took that exact same presentation and I went to elected officials and say, this is what Black people are going to be asking you for, so you might as well learn how to give it to them. Yeah. And so if we can try to figure out how to make sure our people know what to ask for and how to know it when they see it, and then we can make sure we communicate to our elected officials exactly what we need and that we're looking for it, then I think we can close that gap between the expectation and outcome. Until we do that, it's going to be hard to get them to come back again, because they did this for Obama in 08. Yeah. We had 71% voter turnout in 08. Now, the problem is that in 2010, when the legislature was being elected, we had 11%. So we threw Gatorade on ourselves and spiked the ball like we won the game with Obama, but it was halftime. We forgot to come back out.
Right.
And give him the state legislature or the Congress that he needed. Yeah. To Jasmen's point. So we got to close that gap. We got to know who and we got to know what, who we're voting for and what we're expecting, and make sure that we're keeping our young people engaged in between elections so they'll know why they need to vote the next time.
Right. Does that look like a third party? Does that look like an independent organization? Because when I think about the 60s, because I was thinking about this earlier before we got on our call, and somebody was telling me, because I was telling them to do some advertising with Hilo News, and they were like, well, your generation and younger does not vote. And I was like, but they don't vote because you don't engage them. They're like, well, the numbers show if I have a limited amount of money, I'm going to go to the super voters, which are older demographic. And so I was thinking, I was like, this wasn't always like, when you think about the civil rights movement, that's the young people getting hosed down by those dogs. And by those hoes that ate up by those dogs. Those are kids. And so I'm like, what happened between 1960 and 2024 where they were so bold enough to say, I'm going to get chewed up by a dog because I believe in this so much. But there was organizations that existed to me that helped fuel that. But I'm like, where is what does that look like? Does that look like a new independent Black party or minority party or working class party? Like, what does that look like? Because we keep saying we need to do this, but who was the group that's going to bring us together? Because we need that. I will say we need that because we're not just going to do it on our own.
So I would say that's a lie, that person that said that to you, because when you look at Black Lives Matter and you even look at the women's march that happened after Trump was elected, the largest, movement of people in history, that was youngish folks that did that. The largest documented movement, like international marches in history. Not only that, as of a month ago, it was college kids staging encampments at their colleges because they were upset with what was going on with the government and what's happening with the occupation in Palestine. That's young people. When you look at Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, that was young people. That was me and my homies in Fort Lauderdale with 5,000 people, right? Like that was young people. So anybody that says that young people are not engaged, I find that offensive, right? Like when I look at, again, my sister, when I look at after Parkland, the high schoolers that were lit across this country and so upset. Like when I look at even the older folks or the parents of these kids that are being transformed by the rage and the joy and the hope that some of these young people are feeling, I'm like, that's not real. And if you keep believing that, these young folks y'all gonna fuck around and find out with these young people.
Let me explain to you what the culprit is. That nobody really sees coming. And we all know about it. And I'm going to say it and you're going to be like, of course, right? It's data. All right. If we think about it, data rules. Data is the reason why Amazon and Facebook, it's all data, right?
Yep.
Like data is king. And when you're not a part of the controlling of the data, you understand? You're just a consumer. Yeah. Right. So therefore, people could tell you whatever they want. And so, Janae, I feel your pain because this is a battle, unfortunately, I fight every day on that radio station. You understand? This is a true story. I was at an event where the president of iHeartRadio was there, and he kept an event where he invited his people who spent the most money at the radio station and stuff like that. It was like a little get-together party. And they had all the radio personalities come just to be like, hey, whatever. Me being me, right? So I come on stage and we all had an opportunity to say something. And I just said something very slick that he just loved. And every time I see him, he always says it back to me. I said, hey, everybody, my name is Papa Keith from 103.5 The Beat, the hip hop station here in Miami. You may not listen to me, but your kids do. Just as simple as that. It spoke volumes, right? Because it's like they're always quick to make the studies and everything show or dismiss that Black people don't spend, Black people don't do this.
Yeah.
It's all lies. It's all numbers that they have control over, that they're positioning in a way so that they can control where the money is going.
Yeah.
You think anybody in a corporation in a right mind is going to really allow Black people to know that their dollar is the most important dollar?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Even as far as the statistics we get from the radio station, it's bullshit. And it's a part of a system that I'm in, but I push up against it. Because I say to the people, I said, when you go to a Heat game, what are they playing? They're not playing Taylor Swift, sir. They're playing hip hop.
Right. Yep.
You understand? When you go, so I have to like break it down to them with like real life tangible things like common sense. Like you can't go around that. You can act like you got all the stats you want, but I'm going to give you real life situations where, you know what I mean? So it's unfortunate we still have to deal with these lies like Jasmen is saying to you. And it's so frustrating. And it gets so frustrating to the point where we just keep getting those doors slammed in our face. It's like we actually believe it. It's really not true.
Can I just add an old dude's perspective just for 2 minutes? Time me real quick. I think I'm going to look at the title.
And please talk about organization and what that looks like too.
It's exactly where I'm going. Because you asked a very pertinent question. What changed from when we got the progress that has become historic and written about and told 50 years later to now? And remember the bald guy with the bow tie told you that no matter what the problem is for Black people, the answer has to always start with unity. So when I was in college at Morehouse College, I had the pleasure as a part of the Morehouse Scholars Program of being able to choose one of the many historic figures who was around the city of Atlanta at the time. And our assignment was to shadow them and write a report about them. I chose Hosea Williams. If you know anything about Hosea Williams, you'll know that he was one of the field generals for a lot of the marches that we all talk about. And one thing that
relate to our younger audience, that's Portia Williams from Real Housewives of Atlanta, granddaddy.
It's a granddaddy, that's correct. And so I chose Hosea Williams. I got a chance to ride around for 2 days with a man who was instrumental in organizing some of the most historic marches that we talked about. And there's two things I would never forget that he told me. One, he said that if Dr. King knew how to organize, they didn't know it. In other words, everybody played a role. He was the mouthpiece, but he wasn't the one who pulled everybody together. The second thing he said was that they actually had an organizing philosophy called the tiger hunting theory. And so he talked about the fact that mythically the tiger is this very temperamental creature. So they get really upset, but they're very, very cunning. So you got to be very careful when you try to catch them. So they had two people playing roles. Listen to me now. They had one group of people who would make a whole lot of noise. And they will make so much noise that they would aggravate the hell out of that tiger. And when that tiger gets so aggravated, all he's focused on is quieting the noise. But then he loses his advanced sense of awareness. And then there's a sniper, the second role, who takes him out. You have a group of young people who were specifically assigned to aggravate the hell out of white people, to the point where they said, oh my gosh, Martin, what do they want? What can we do to stop this rioting in the streets? What can we do, corporations of Black Lives Matter, to stop this rioting in the street for George Floyd? But what we don't have is coordination between the young and old, so that when the young people do their job to get people to pay attention, a strategy in place to make them come to us and negotiate. We don't have it. And that's the difference.
And to that point, a recent example is when George Floyd happened and we were going to have marches, and we were planning to have marches just like the rest of the country. There were some people that were complaining that our marches are always in Fort Lauderdale. We need to go to a Black city, be in alignment with the Black city, bring it to our people so that they could join. I tried to coordinate that with the Black city nearby, and we were all good. We were communicating. Everything was going to be fine. Also, remember, this is during COVID. We had talked about safety. We had a plan to make this happen. The night before the march, the city called me and was like, you can't come here no more.
Yep.
What city was this? What city was this?
It was the city of Lauderhill.
Why?
Said you can't come here no more because they were worried that it would turn into a riot. They were seeing all over the country that buildings were getting burned down. And I was like, I've led so many marches that's never happened. Like, but if you do this, that will happen. Like, if you do this, you're going to make something that is more dangerous because we've already told people where to come. Folks know what to, we have a plan. So if you do this, you're going to have angry people on your hands because people want to do something, they want to gather. And I can guarantee you that we will keep them safe. If you do this, it's going to be bad. And they were like, nope. And they said, if people come here tomorrow, the gates will be closed and we're turning them away. So that night, in the middle of the night, we had to find a place to go. And it was 5,000 people that eventually showed up to that march in downtown Fort Lauderdale.
Yep.
Downtown Fort Lauderdale, where we had to go. So it's like, to Brian's point, and I think that that's a really great point. That's like, if we take our role as agitators, we'll proudly take that role, right? It's like, we can get people out. We could turn them out. We could turn them out safely. We keep us safe. We've never had any problem. We could do that. Who are the other people on the other side that's like, we're not with them, but you should listen to them?
Exactly.
Well,
Right.
who are those people that instead are not the Black electeds calling and like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it this way? You shouldn't have done, y'all need to do it this way. And da-da-da-da-da. Like, there is very, very little support from our Black elders in this process. I have felt very, very little support in this. So again, it's like the broke down card. You expect me to almost like read your mind and follow your foot, like all that. Like, that's what you expect from us. And for what? You know, the story that I have even with Commissioner Gilbert when he was at, or Chairman Gilbert, when he was at City of Miami Gardens, was when Laval Hall was killed. Police officers in that city shot a mentally ill young man after his mom called for help. Thankfully, it never made national headlines. Thankfully for them, it never made national headlines. It sparked protests in the ways that it should have. But we gave him hell at the city commission meeting, to the point where one day he was like, what do you want? Like, what do you want? And we were like, here's the 3 demands. And he was like, fine, fine. Like, let's meet and you got it. Like, what do you want? And I think that that's, to Brian's point, is what it takes. Like, how are we coordinated where everybody can have their lane and do their thing? I think the last thing that I want to say, because I know we're going to wrap up soon, is also, I wish I could tell people not to be distracted by political parties for exactly the story that Brian said about when you take away the names of all these things and just vote for your life, the life of people that you love or whatever, we'd be shocked by what comes out of it. We know that overwhelmingly Amendment 3 and Amendment 4 are likely to pass because people always vote progressively when they get inside that private ballot box, right? When they have to think about the things that have happened to them and the people that they love. In Florida, they overwhelmingly vote progressively. So how do we then have a conversation about the candidates that don't believe in those really progressive policies and the fact that people don't connect the two different things? You're going to vote for this candidate at the same time that you vote for abortion access, and this candidate don't believe in that. Like, how do we strip it all the way down and really get people to understand, like, if you're voting for this thing over here, ignore the theater of whatever political party and vote along the issues, understand the issues, and understand where they stand. Because there's some people that vote Republican and then are shocked that their families are getting deported. Are shocked, like, you know, are shocked. There are a group of Republicans that are the log cabin Republicans that are LGBTQ Republicans that are then shocked when Republicans say things about, right? Like, and it's just like, you voted for the wolf. What did you expect? Yeah. So it's like, strip away all the theater of all of this and really get down and dirty, looking at your everyday life and what you know you and your community deserves. And who's going to give that to you? Who's committed to doing that for you right now if they're in office, and in the future if they get elected or reelected? And that's where we need to be voting. And that's also what we need to demand. And I think Democrats are also scared that because of those different things, people are not really down with the things that they're saying on a regular basis. And that's scary. But the choice is theirs, right? Like, it's Biden's race to lose. It's the Democrats' race to lose because people do not want Trump. That's very clear to me. They do not want Trump.
Man, how are we guys on time? I want to respect people's time, but the conversation has been so good.
Yeah, it really does.
Like, it went by real fast.
If I could squeeze in a little vote by mail question, Ted, maybe. Just want to talk about how, vote by mail was really never meant to be for us. But now I look at the curse being the gift, or the gift being the curse, however you want to flip it. But just, Black and brown working class people, is vote by mail really the shiznit?
I'll answer it this way. We've seen the quote, some attributed to rapper Common, others to, I think it was John Lewis, the quote that says, if your vote was not so important, then they wouldn't be trying so hard to take it. And that is extremely true. But what we also know is that those people who don't want you to vote can't just say, let's do the thing that we used to do back in the 40s and 50s and make them count jelly beans in a jar, or do some sort of other crazy mental gymnastics so they can trip up and then not vote. They can't take it blatantly like that. What they do is they try to make it so that you can voluntarily give it away. So that if they can make voting frustrating, if they can make it inconvenient, they know that there's a strong chance that if you waited all the way until 6:45 p.m. on election day, there is a chance that if we can start shutting down machines earlier, all of a sudden start having machines having issues, or it's raining outside, or we have people who get sick who are poll workers. Now you got to wait in the line for 3 hours. Chances are you're going to leave that line. So to your point, PK, while we Black people have a justifiable distrust of systems like the mail people, the reality is that I found that voting by mail, especially when it's coupled with the ability to drop off your ballot at a location, and the other thing that we have are early voting days. So the more options we have to actually participate in the process, the more likely we are to participate. So I'm an advocate for more options than less options. Yeah. So for me, vote by mail is a critical tool. I do it all the time. Me and my daughter are signed up for vote by mail for every election, because every single time I have a chance to fill out my ballot in my kitchen table, and I normally never put it in the mailbox. I always drive it to a drop-off location, either downtown at the main supervisor of elections office or at one of the early voting locations. But that's how I use the convenience to participate in the process and give myself that extra sense of assuredness that it got in there. Now, what Broward County has done, I don't know if Miami-Dade has done it, but Broward County now lets you track your vote by mail. Yeah. So you can submit your vote, and then you can go online within 48 hours and see if they've received it. So that's another way of giving you assurance. But absolutely, vote by mail and other options are critical tools in the toolbox to ensure that our people participate.
Yeah. And I just want to add that laws just passed in Florida to make it more difficult. It used to be that you vote by mail once and it's good for a few election cycles. Now you have to do it for every single election cycle. So I call it an insurance policy. When I talk to voters, I'm like, just request it, because you never know what's going to happen on election day. You never know what's going to happen to you, your family, where you'll have to be. And at least it's something that, like Brian said, you could drop it off. If you have to mail it, you can mail it. And if for nothing else, I like using mine almost like a sample ballot, where I can see what it looks like. I see what it feels like. I can see how many pages it is, whatever. If I know I'm going to vote in person, I take notes on it. Like it's an insurance policy to have. And if you don't want to drop it off in the little box that they have, you can still go vote in person. Yep. So that's what I do. I always request it, and I still walk up in them people's place and I vote. I never send it. They shred it for you and you vote right there. So people need to do that. Like Brian said, I want to reiterate, like just having the options and the security of the options and all of that. I think also requesting your vote by mail ballot is something that they're trying to make more and more voters inactive, and being an inactive voter looks different from county to county. So in some counties, if you didn't vote in 2 elections, which could be a presidential, and then your municipal election, you're considered inactive, even though those things may have happened within 6 months of each other, right? You're considered inactive in some of these counties. But requesting your vote by mail ballot puts you back on the voter rolls as active. So that's another simple action just to be sure, like you are all set. I also tell people to do it because I remember when Gillum ran for office and the week of the election, I was literally calling and texting every single person in my phone. I didn't care who it was, ex-boyfriends, their mamas, like people I went to middle school with. And I was like, go out and vote. And I remember that there were people responding back to me. Number one, they were saying, oh, that election's happening now, which was crazy to me. And there were also some people that were like, I just realized I can't do it because I'm still registered to vote in such and such a county and I live down here. So again, requesting your vote by mail ballot is this insurance policy that'll tell you like ahead of time whether you need to update your voter registration, like what is going on to make sure you are ready and all set to go when it comes time for election day. So I highly, highly advocate for request the vote by mail ballot. Even if you never use it, even if you still vote in person, you drop it off, whatever, request your vote by mail ballot.
That part.
And I want to my producer Tamila put in the chat that in Miami, you can track your ballot by online to make sure that they got it. So I just wanted our Miami-Dade County voters to know that you can track it as well. So, man, PK, I wish we had like another 3, 4, 5 hours. Like Brian, we said you got the realest people in Broward County. I was like,
you ain't never lied. You ain't never lied, Brian.
Yeah, so I would say again, don't wait till the last minute. I believe, and Jasmen, correct me if I'm wrong, for those who need to change their party affiliation, change their address, get their child who has recently turned 18 years old registered, I think you may have until next week.
22nd, July 22nd.
Yeah, a week from today to do that in Broward, period, if you're going to vote in August. And remember what I told you all. If there is no other reason in the world to vote in August in Broward County, I need Lottie Dottie and everybody to show up and vote against those Moms for Liberty school board candidates. Right. We cannot let Broward County, the most Democratic county in this state, be a testing ground for that kind of foolishness. We know who they are. We need to vote against every last one of them in unison.
Brian, could you please let everybody know how they can get connected with you, how they can, stay in touch with you, or
I'm sure you got some new fans.
Well, yeah, I'm on Facebook at Brian C. Johnson. As a matter of fact, you can search Brian C. Johnson on most socials to get me, but on IG, somebody else stole the name, so I'm Brian _C_ Johnson. I also have a project I'm working on called Trap Chats, TRAP, Talking Race and Politics with Brian C. Johnson. That's going to be a series of discussions, conversations. Janae and I talked about podcasts and stuff like that. But somewhere we can have these ongoing conversations around common sense ways to view and play politics to the benefit of Black people. So Brian C. Johnson on Facebook, Brian _C_ Johnson on IG, and Trap Chats with Brian C. Johnson.
Thank you so much, brother. Jasmen, please let people know how they can learn more about you, how they can learn about the folding chair and all the stuff you do, you know what I'm saying? That benefit from as well with Just Vote, period.
Absolutely. So I first want to start off and say, if you are in Broward County and you're registered to vote, you can also go look at your sample ballot right now. Yeah. So if you go Google Broward County Supervisor of Elections and sample ballot, all you have to do is put in your address and you can be prepared to vote on August 20th. So you don't feel like you have to be rushed inside the ballot box. Even if you didn't request your vote by mail, you can see what is on your August ballot right now. I literally did it during this call to make sure there were no ballot initiatives so I can be prepared. So go do that. And then you can find me in so many different ways. You can find me on Facebook at Jasmen Rogers. Nobody else has a name spelled like mine, Jasmen Rogers. And on Instagram, I hide a little bit. So I am the church girl in therapy. on Instagram because I need so much therapy to deal with politics. And then I'm also on LinkedIn, and you can find me with the Florida Black Girls, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the petty of Florida politics. Because we need people like Janae, we need people like PK to really break down politics in a language that folks can understand. We're done talking about politics above people's heads. It gets us nowhere. So I'm committed to making sure we're storytelling with our politics and that we're bringing people along the way with us.
Yeah, you did a great job of it today, both of you. Thank you so much, Janae.
This was a civics class. I truly appreciate you guys for breaking it down. And I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I would love to have you guys back on in the future to break things down for our audience, because you guys not only gave us Broward, but y'all gave us like broader picture and history and facts and just rap lyrics and all types of stuff. It was, this is my shit. I love this type of song.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure having you on That Part podcast. And we wish you all the best in all your individual works. And like you said, man, we just have to find a way to get us all to come together.
Yeah.
As we talk about, the political people coming together, that's what this podcast is about too. We found the heavy hitters between Broward and Dade County, and we're ultimately putting them together in this series, all local people to come together. So we have so much respect for y'all. Y'all are our superheroes, within this stuff. So we really, really appreciate your time and the wealth of information that you've given, not only our audience, but us.
Yeah, and our producers too. Tammy's in the chat, Zanae's in the chat, and Zanae is younger, and she's like, this was great, and I need to step it up with my voting. Like, we're like, this is why we're doing this. Like, to see that in real time, like, that just really touched my heart. Like, Can I
say one thing though, because y'all may not realize this, but you all in all 5 episodes, and I've watched each one of them, have been very successful in touching on the very valuable pulse of some of the smartest, committed people in politics in South Florida. And I'll declare today what I declared back when she decided to run for state rep. I rise with Jasmen Rogers. I don't care how popular or unpopular it is to stick with an incumbent. If people like Jasmen, who have the sensibilities, who have the commitment, who have the courage to then go from advocate to elected official, present themselves on the ballot, there should be no question from us as to whether or not we support them. Because otherwise, what are we saying? We're saying that we want to keep supporting the same old shit that we all, the same old stuff that we always been getting. We need more Jasmines. We need some Janaes. We need some Papa Keefs to run for office. And we got to rally behind those people when they do.
And we need Brian too.
I'm done.
Well, listen, thank you so much again, man. We can't stop thanking you. We're going to do our little aftermath session and talk about y'all. Behind your back, but you hear about it. It's not ever bad when you watch the episode back. You know what I'm saying? But thank you so much. All right, we love you.
Thank y'all.
Good to see you, darling.
You too.
All right, take care now.
Thank you, Jasmen. Love you.
Thanks, Janae.
Janae, like, our podcasts keep getting longer and longer.
Somebody in the comments said it. And they were like, I wish the episode was longer. Like, they felt like the information was so good. But honestly, this is an easy listen. And I think that people are going to like flow through this one. Like,
yeah. This one was, you were anticipating this one differently. And what I liked about it is just kind of talking to people who are not either currently elected officials or running for something. And I felt they were able to speak from a space or from a perspective that, not saying anybody who we had on before, was putting on at any means, but it just felt different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Today, and then I felt really good and proud that we were able to just really get Broward involved on a real level. Really have some real, true Broward people, you know what I'm saying, to chime in, that put in some work in Broward as well. So, Great. I know these were ones that you selected. So, great job on that, JT.
No, thank you. No, I mean, well, Jasmen, she works with us with Just Vote, period.
Yeah.
To the audience. So we've been saying we got to get her on. And
Right.
so Brian, I was sending him the information on the show, and I was like, yo, you're Broward face. It's like, you and Jasmen. I was like, you know her? And he was like, I love her. I was like, oh, this is going to be a great episode. So just to,
really
see like the wealth of knowledge, like, I want to have them back on just, for our different seasons, and there's different things that they could break down for us. Like, clearly they're so smart. They really they give me like that, the white energy, that Robert energy where they know a lot about things. Like you said, our elected officials, I think a lot of them want to talk about things in that way, but that decorum, and they can't. So having people like that in our pocket for the show is really good, because they can really say things like in a plain way and be as raw and real as they want to, because they're not, running for office or have to be a certain way.
Right. I think that was amazing, man. Listen, we ain't gonna hold y'all. We know this was a long show today, but we just want to remind everyone to please subscribe. Please subscribe. Go to YouTube, That Part Podcast 305. Follow us on Instagram, and please subscribe on YouTube. It means the world to us. It's very important to us. Share it as well. Share this information. Don't be selfish. Share it with your kids, share it with your friends and your family. It's really important that we get the word out. We're asking of the time very important people, and we're taking like 2 hours of their time for you. This is not for us. We can have these conversations over cocktails and dinner and stuff like that. We are doing this for you. And talking about for you, I'd be remiss if I don't say High-Low News. For you, South Florida's hyperlocal news. Please subscribe to High-Low News. You want to find out what's going on in Broward, Dade, West Palm Beach, things that are truly affecting you, things that are important to you and your neighborhood and your community. You can find it all at High-Low News, South Florida's hyperlocal news. I please, need you to really tap in on that. This show is brought to you by High-Low News. We wouldn't be able to do this without the efforts of High-Low News. So it's that important. Also, Just Vote, period. Y'all know that's my thing. Definitely trying to get, the millennials, Gen Xers, and whoever involved with the voting process. And you've heard our guests talk about, different ways of activating, and that's what we're into. So we call ourselves lifestyle voting advocates, right? So, we're cool kids, we chill, we party, we have a good time, but we do understand that when it comes to the voting, we take that serious, and it's very important. You know what I mean? And, and I'm a victim of, just not voting and not caring and not understanding and thinking my vote doesn't matter or count. And, I've been able to change my view on that, tap in, learn some things, get help from people like Janae, getting involved. And so I now want to take that and share with you and give you that same energy and that feeling and allow you to know, that's cool. As much as they want to make you feel it's not, it is. Mm-hmm. Trump is doing it. When he brings those rappers and when he does that stuff, he has Kodak and Plies fighting. You know what I'm saying? Look at that. They're fighting based on voting. I know. Plies and Kodak. So, you know what I mean? So you can get involved too, but on a real level. That's more superficial. You can get involved on a real level. Local elections. Talking about, things that are going to matter to you and your children. If you don't care about yourself, you care about your kids. You don't care about your kids, you care about your parents and their legacy. You got to, tap into something. I think Just Vote, period, helps you with that. So go to our website at justvoteperiod.com, and I guarantee there's going to be something on the website that's going to touch you. You know what I mean? You can vote by mail. You can register to vote. You can find out the different things to vote on, all right there, all right? And Janae, man.
No, I was going to tell our viewers that they're looking at the screen. Wait, what you said?
I was going to let you do the last part, follow us.
Oh, yeah. I was going to tell them, and be looking at the screen. You could get the information to follow me and Papa Keith on social media. Like you said, Just Vote period, Papa_Keith. My personal page is Janae Tate. Of course, our social media page for High Low News is HYLONEWS. But on the screen, you got all the information. Also, too, I want to give a shameless plug. We have some content out that I really want our audience to know about. We did a special report on High Low News about how Amendment 3, we were talking about that a lot, and even last week talked about amendments. That is the weed amendment, legalizing recreational use of marijuana in Florida. We have broken down how that's going to affect Black people economically, business-wise, and in the criminal justice system. So head to highlowNewsMiami.com to read that article. We have a special report.
I needed to collaborate that with Just Vote. I know
I'm going to do a repost, and I'm going to make sure I collab with you. So we did it. I'm just letting them know it's the website, but we're going to repost it again on social. And shout out to my senior reporter Ashika, who did that reporting, and my manager editor Derica. Then also too, recently I put out an op-ed yesterday about Teddy Bridgewater, NFL star, who's now the Miami Northwestern head coach. He was called out for a comedic skit, and I pretty much did a love letter to Black Miami high school culture and really like South Florida high school culture, alumni culture, and what that really means. And so you could tell that the white writer didn't understand. He was like, it's a rivalry. Teddy shouldn't have done this. And all these outlets ran with it. And I was like, let's reset this narrative. Let me explain to y'all what this was, why he did it, why it wasn't some crazy negative thing. Carroll City, Northwestern, all the schools, we understood the joke. And it was just to promote their alumni picnic. And so I'll go into some details about the culture and the history of Black Miami high schools and our alumni culture, our football culture. And it was a love letter to our urban core, our Black high schools. And so I want y'all to check that out. I always forget to promote the work that we're doing. So when you said that, I was like, oh, maybe I should tell them of these stories that we have out right now.
Damn right. Was it that thing with the Boys in the Hood?
Yes.
That was so creative.
It was so good. I loved it. Shout out. I wish I could remember all the guys' name. I think Nate, Teddy Bridgewater, Antoine Easterland, Chicken and Backwoods, I think the production company. But all these guys, they went to different schools around Miami-Dade County, but great. It was creative. I loved it. I thought it was really funny and good. And like anybody who loves 90 movies, Boys in the Hood, to see that remake and their play on it, yeah. It was, I was cracking up. I'm sorry, Carroll City people, don't be mad at me, but it was fun. It was fun.
Gotta give credit where it's due. All right, thank you so much. We appreciate you all. Until next week, man. Catch us every Wednesday, 8 o'clock here on YouTube. All right, you already know what it is. That Part Podcast 305.
Wait, do you have an event coming up with Just Vote period? Because we promoting our stuff. No, or do they need to
follow, I would say just follow us on Instagram at Just Vote period. I would say we do a lot of brunches that we, partner with. We got I think the next thing that we're doing is July 31st. We're doing a sneaker ball. Ooh. So you put on your nice tux, what you got on your sneakers. That's my vibe right there. So I think that's another one that we will be promoting. But all the cool stuff, man, you're going to find us at. But follow us at Just Vote period on Instagram to find out where we'll be next. Thank you, Janae.
You're welcome. Good night, y'all.
Hey.